welcome back to my channel. So today I'm sitting down and we are doing the eyeshadow palette tag round 2. Allie, Glines, and Samantha paired up, teamed up again, and created a round 2 of this very fun tag video. I'm super excited to be doing this today for you guys. Eyeshadow palettes is like one of my favorite things about makeup, so I am pumped to be answering these questions for you guys today. Before we get started, don't forget to upload every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday for you guys. If you like this video while you're watching it, please go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. It really does help my channel out. And other than that, if you're excited and you want to hear my answers to the eyeshadow palette tag round 2, then let's go ahead and get started. So as I stated in the intro, this tag was created by Allie, Glines, and Samantha. I will have both of their channels linked down below for you, as well as both of their round 2 videos as well. So they made an eyeshadow palette tag, I want to say around 2 years ago or so. I did the original tag. I will have a link down below in case you want to check it out, but I'm just warning you. It was like my 4th or 5th video ever here on YouTube. So if you watch it, I'm just warning you, it's one of my beginning videos and it's a little rough, but it's gonna be linked down below in case you do want to check it out. But they teamed up again and came up with all new questions for us to answer this time around. I will have the questions in my description box in case you're a content creator and you want to do this tag. I'm tagging everyone. They tagged everyone, so I'm also tagging everyone. If you want to do this tag, go ahead and do it. I would love to see all of your guys' answers to it as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first question is your all-time favorite palette. This was really hard for me to choose. I'm not going to lie. I really sat there and thought and was like, my all-time favorite palette? I have had some favorites in the past that I don't own anymore, but I really thought long and hard, and I'm still not quite convinced with the one that I chose, but I decided to stop overthinking it and just choose a palette. So I chose the Natasha Denona Mini Nude palette. I've had this palette for a very long time. I want to say coming up on 3 years, and it has never done me wrong, ever. Every time I use this palette, it is truly just beautiful on the eyes. I can trust it. I can go to it. I know whenever I use it, I'm gonna love my look. I'm not gonna struggle. The mattes are beautiful. They don't get too patchy on me at all. And these 2 shimmers, I don't reach for this one very often, but these 2 shimmers are absolutely stunning on the eyes. If you can see, I have huge dips in both of these shimmers, especially this one. I just genuinely think this palette is beautiful. I love the color story. I think it's neutral and can be natural, but still glam if you need it to be. I love this so much. I bought it for my best friend Courtney this past Christmas because I was like, I love this palette. I think Courtney will love it. And I think she does. She's used it a couple of times since I gave it to her, and she told me that she also thinks it is a beautiful little palette. So I don't necessarily know if this is like my all-time favorite ever, but for right now and my collection and what I've had the past couple of years, this has stayed through quite a few palette declutters. So yeah, I decided to say this is my all-time favorite because it's just a good go-to. I just really love this palette. Question number 2 is a new favorite palette to you. And I went ahead and chose the new Pat McGrath and Bridgerton palette. This is technically called the Mothership Diamond of the First Water. I just call it the Bridgerton palette. I am pleasantly surprised by this palette. It is absolutely stunning. When I first got it in the mail, I wasn't super impressed with it. It's not very weighty. It doesn't feel very luxe. It's cardboardy. It does have a nice big mirror, but for the most part, it's not anything that's like too substantial or blows your mind packaging wise. I mean, it's pretty, but like the actual like feel and aesthetic of it, it's just kind of chintzy and a little bit cheap looking and feeling. But these shades are absolutely stunning and the quality is perfection. I love all of these so much. This matte right here is absolutely stunning. It's one of those mattes that you can go in with a light wash, but then really pack it on and make it look like 2 or 3 different shades with how you finesse it. This shimmer right here in the middle, no words. It is absolutely stunning. These 2 right here, these 2 pinks, I didn't think were necessary at first, but they definitely are. They are different enough on your eyes. And they're a new sort of like shimmer matte. It's not what she calls it. Oh shoot, what is the actual like name of these? Satin matte, I believe. They're like a new satin matte formula for her, and they are absolutely stunning. I hope she comes out with more formulas and more shades in this formula because it is beautiful. It has a special shade in here. What? A special shade? I was so excited about that. It looks pretty blue on your finger, but honestly, if you just tap it on your eye, it just gives the most beautiful, like diamond-y, shimmery, insane sort of look. The only one in the palette that I don't absolutely love is this one right here. It's just kind of meh. I could have taken it or left it. It's just, I don't know. But this is like a new favorite for me. Every time I reach for this, I love my look. I think it's beautiful. I used these 2 shades for work the other day. Just threw this in the crease in the outer corner and this all over the lid. And it looked so stunning and beautiful. It looked like I spent a ton of time on my eyeshadow and it took me like 2 seconds long. So I'm absolutely loving this. I'm really glad that they came out with it and I'm really glad that I picked it up. It's definitely a new favorite and I'm excited to keep playing with it. Also, just to let you know, self promo, I did go ahead and do a like first impression swatching video of it and all of that. I can have linked in the eye and down below in case you missed it. Number 3 is a palette that you keep for the memories. So I'm not just keeping this palette for the memories. I actually genuinely like this palette. I like the looks that I make, the formulation, the brand, all of the above, but it is the BH Cosmetics Hanging in Hawaii palette. And the reason why I chose this for the keeping for the memories is because I got this when I went shopping with my mom and my sister right before quarantine back in 2020, like right before everything shut down. I'm talking like 2 or 3 weeks before. The 3 of us went shopping at our local mall and we were just perusing Ulta and I was, you know, talking about makeup and looking at makeup and doing all the makeup-y things because my mom and sister totally understand that I'm obsessed with makeup. And when I saw this palette, I was like, man, I just love it. I think it's so pretty. I've heard good things. I'm gonna buy it one day, but I just hadn't picked it up yet. And my mom was so sweet and she was like, well, I'll buy it for you today. And I was like, you don't have to do that. Like, I'll buy it myself. Like, you're fine. And she was like, no, it's fine. Like, I'll buy it for you. So my mom bought me this palette, which I think was just so incredibly sweet of her. Like I said, I genuinely love the formula, the color story. Every time I use it, I love my look, but it just has a really nice memory attached to it since A, my mom bought it for me, and B, it was back before COVID. Back before everything shut down. I mean, it technically wasn't before COVID because it was definitely around then, a couple weeks before everything shut down, but you know what I mean. It was before the world changed for what seems like maybe forever. I hope not, but it's just a really nice memory when I think about this. Number 4 is an underrated palette for you, and for that I chose the Makeup by Mario Master Mattes palette. I went with this one because when you look at this, it seems very unassuming. It's an all matte palette, obviously, so it doesn't have any of those shimmer, poppy, punchy, sparkly, beautiful, amazing shades in it like a lot of other color stories have and a lot of other palettes have. And those are definitely, I feel like, the shades that kind of draw people in, especially if you are a makeup lover. Having new shiny formulas and shiny shades to work with is always exciting and fun and you just want to give them a go, right? So when you look at this, you're like, oh, an all matte palette. Okay, like yeah, these palettes are definitely necessary, especially for working artists and all that, but it's not anything exciting and shiny, you know what I mean? This palette's amazing though. I love the color story that Mario picked for this. I love the gradation. You have pretty much every tone you would need. You have cool tones, you have warm tones. And what I love about this is the formulation. These do not get patchy on me. They do not get muddy when you mix different shades together. They do not fluff away. They stay pigmented all day long and they are so easy to blend. They are not necessarily insanely pigmented at first. You have to kind of build them up, but when you get it to where you want and you can deepen it with the other shades, you know what I mean? You can make a really nice gradation on your eye, which I typically prefer. This is so good for that. I just really, really love this palette. I got it for Christmas from my papaw, which I was super excited about. He had a little help picking it out, but that's okay. I'm really glad I have this in my collection. It's a nice staple go-to palette for sure. And then I can pair any sort of Colourpop Super Shock or any single shadow I want with these mattes. I love this. And I feel like it's underrated. I feel like I don't hear a ton of people talking about it. I think because it's all matte and it's a little bit more boring per se. But yeah, this is a great staple palette to have in your collection. Number 5 is a palette that's not your favorite, but for some reason you just cannot get rid of it. And for that, I chose the Natasha Denona Mini Glam palette. So I bought this mini one before the Midi Glam palette came out. And if the larger one would have came out first, I wouldn't have picked this one up. But because this came out first, I really liked the color story. But since the larger one came out, I just never really reached for this. And when I want these more neutrally glam sort of tones, I go into the larger one. But I just, for some reason, cannot get rid of this. I really can't. I recently did an eyeshadow palette declutter back during Vlogmas in December. I can have that linked in the eye and down below in case you missed it. I really honestly thought I was going to declutter this. I had my mind made up that I was gonna get rid of it. And then the declutter came around. And the reason why I didn't get rid of it is because I had used it before I filmed that declutter for work and I was impressed with it. And I was like, oh, you know, maybe I don't want to get rid of this. So this is one, it's not a favorite. And like I said, if I want these tones, I'm gonna reach for other palettes, but I just can't, I can't declutter it. I don't know why. I just feel like I would regret it if I did. So for now, I just can't get rid of it. Number 5 is your favorite collab. And I don't know if they meant of like 2021, because that was just the year that we obviously just had, or they just meant your favorite collab ever. So I took it as like your favorite collab ever that you've ever purchased. And for that, I chose the Anastasia Beverly Hills and Jackie Aina palette. I am still obsessed with this palette years later. This came out in 2019, so 3 years ago, at the end of 2019. I picked it up in the very beginning of 2020 and I got a half off, which I was super excited about. This was my favorite #1 palette of 2020. I just fell in love with it, and here I am, what, 2 years later, and I'm still obsessed with it. This palette is just honestly perfection. Jackie Aina is a beautiful Black content creator here on YouTube, so she made this palette with deeper skin tones in mind, which I think is really awesome that she did that, but it's so universal that it can still work for me with a very fair skin tone. I just love this color story. When you look at it, it does look a little bit intimidating. It looks deep and dark and rich, which it is, and that's the good thing. That's the beauty of it. It's for deeper skin tones. But if I go in with a light hand with some of these like deeper shades, they look beautiful on me as well. And there's just something about this color story that inspires me. It gets me excited. I still love to reach into it years later. Every single solitary time I have ever used this palette, I have loved my look. Like truly, I feel so beautiful when I use this palette. And it is my favorite collaboration that really I think I've ever purchased. I love it. Number 7 is a favorite from 2021. I might surprise some of you guys because I'm not going to pick my #1 palette from 2021. I did a palette ranking of all the palettes that I tried last year, and my #1 palette is not the one I'm going to talk about, and that might confuse some of you guys, but this is just what I chose. And I chose the Pat McGrath Mothership Mega Celestial Odyssey. This palette, I love it so much. I love it. It's definitely a favorite. Again, this was another one kind of like my favorite ever palette. It was kind of hard to choose this as like a favorite from 2021, but it definitely was. I feel kind of cheaty putting this in here because I definitely got it towards the end of 2021. I picked this up in November, I believe, but I don't care. I'm putting it in here as my favorite from 2021 because I love it that much. Pat's shimmer shades, like most of this palette has, are just out of this world. It does have 4 mattes, so if you like to go matte heavy with your eyeshadow looks, definitely skip this one if it's still available. I kind of think it is. I think it's still on her website. If it is, I'll have it linked down below for you. But her shimmer shades are really what make a special eye look on your eye. Yes, her special shades are also very important as well. This doesn't have any of her special shades, but her shimmer formulation is probably one of my favorites ever. They're just so poppy and punchy and impactful on the eyes. They just look stunning. They look wet on your eyes. The tones that she chose for this palette are beautiful, like truly beautiful. It's another palette that every time I've used it, I've loved my look. I feel pretty in it. I feel inspired. I look at this and I'm excited to play with it, to play with color, to try new like combinations. And it's definitely a favorite from 2021. I am so happy I picked this up last year. Number 8 is a palette that you didn't expect to love. Now, I want to preface this palette by saying that I expected to love it, but I just didn't expect to love it as much as I do, and that's why I put it in the category, and that is the ABH Primrose palette. You guys, I freaking love this palette. Every time I talk about this palette, I say this, but I'm going to say it again. So if you've heard it, so sorry to be repetitive. When this first launched, I was not interested at all, truly. The color story is not anything unique. These are all shades that you probably already own. I didn't like the blushes. I truly just thought that was weird that they put blushes on the side. Like, why? Everyone owns blushes. You don't need them. But when I saw this baby in person, I am telling you, it is a bajillion times more beautiful in person than pictures, videos, anything can make it look. Like, you look at this and you're like, oh yeah, that's pretty. In person, it is absolutely stunning. It's another one that every time I use this, I love my look. I feel like this is one that I use way more off camera and in my everyday real life, whatever that means, than I use on camera. And I don't know why, because I truly love it. It's just a nice go-to. It has very beautiful, everyday, neutrally sort of tones that you can use. I use this a lot for work or just hanging out with friends. Not that I do that very often right now, but you know what I mean. This is just really beautiful, everyday tones that you can count on and go to, and they're not going to be too intense, too much for whatever you need them for. Also, I actually really love the blushes. They go perfectly with any eye look that you would want to create. I will say the shimmers have a ton of fallout to them, so definitely be careful. Do your eyes first, use glitter primer. Even taking those precautions, you'll probably have a little bit of fallout on your face. And these are very, very pigmented. The mattes are too. The whole thing is pigmented. But if you're careful, you go in with the light hand, you know that off the bat. Stunning. I have not seen one bad review about this. Honestly, I haven't. If you've tried this, let me know if you love it as much as me, because I feel like every person who I have seen pick this up and talk about it, they all love it. And I expected to love it. I did. I thought it was pretty. I just didn't expect it to love it this much. Number 9 is a palette that sparks joy for you. This was hard. This was hard for me because I feel like a lot of palettes spark joy for me. I thought about talking about the Sitting Grace and Mel Thompson collab in Tiny Marvels because that palette is just beautiful, and every time I look at it, I feel happy inside. I also thought about talking about the Pat McGrath Midnight Sun palette because that was my first mothership that I just recently got, and it made me fall in love with her motherships, and now I literally want all of them. But I chose the Natasha Denona Love palette. Every time I look at this palette, it makes me feel happy. It makes me feel inspired. I love pink eyeshadow, so every time I do an eye look with it, I feel beautiful in this. I think pink tones are very flattering on my skin and help my blue eyes pop, which I'll never be mad about that. This also sparks joy because this is a palette that I wanted for a really long time. I didn't immediately pick it up when it first launched. Like, I picked this up a year or so after it launched, so it was one that I really thought about and really wanted for a long time, and I got it on sale, which I was pumped about. And it sparks joy to me because it lived up to the hype. It lived up to all my expectations. Every time I use it, I love my eye look. Again, like I said, I feel pretty in this palette. I just genuinely love it. I love it, and it just brings me happiness. 2 more questions and then we are done. The next one is the newest in your collection, and that is this Colourpop All Amethyst palette. This got me, you guys. I'm telling you, purple eyeshadows, I feel like will always get me. They always suck me in. Colourpop obviously launches a ton of products, and I feel like their eyeshadow palettes have to really suck me in for me to purchase it because there's just so many of them, you know what I mean? Typically, they're all beautiful. I feel like any Colourpop eyeshadow palette I try, I will enjoy, but I just can't purchase it all, and they just launch a lot, you know what I mean? So when I saw this launch at Ulta, I don't know, something about this palette, man, I just really wanted it. I really wanted to have it, and obviously I bought it. It was only $14, which I was happy about. Obviously Colourpop is very affordable, and this color story just looks so beautiful. I have not had a chance to try it out yet. I plan on using this in an upcoming, like, trying new makeup. I'm waiting for a couple more packages to come in, and then I'm also waiting for a day to film. I've been jam-packed filming, you guys, which I'm not complaining about. I love it. It's just hard to find time to film everything and then find days to upload everything. So that trying new makeup should be coming probably in the next week or 2. But anyways, I plan on using this palette in that video, and I cannot wait to dive in. Oh my gosh, these shimmers just look absolutely stunning. The mattes look really pretty. I really hope it's good quality. I know Colourpop can be hit or miss sometimes, so I'm really hoping these mattes are pigmented and beautiful and not patchy, and these shimmers are just as stunning on the eye as they look in this pan. Ooh, I cannot wait to try this. And then the last question is the first palette that you used in 2022. And that is this Catrice 5 in a Box mini eyeshadow palette right here. This is in the Soft Rose look. So if you missed it, I did a whole face of Catrice. I can also have that linked in the eye and down below for you. I did a whole face of Catrice. Most of it was brand new to me, including this eyeshadow palette. I didn't love it. I'm not gonna lie, I did not love this palette. Unfortunately, I kind of started off 2022 with a little bit of a dud, which was a bummer. These mattes, just none of them really showed up on my eye. Even this pink and this dark brown, blacky gray one that look really pigmented in the pan just kind of weren't. They kind of fluffed away and didn't have a lot of pigmentation and didn't really show up on my eye, which I was bummed about. The 2 shimmers are nice, they're pretty, but they're not anything special or spectacular. So unfortunately, this was a little bit of a bummer to me, but it was the first one I tried this year, so I had to put it in here. And that was you guys. That was my answers to the eyeshadow palette tag part 2. I'm so glad that Allie Glines and Samantha March decided to do a part 2 to this because I love doing tag videos. It's one of my favorite types of videos to film. I just think it's so fun to sit here, answer questions, talk about makeup. Obviously, I am in love with makeup and I love talking about it. That's why I started a YouTube channel. Again, I will have both of their channels and both of their videos linked down below for you to check out. I'm sure you have checked out both of them because they're both very large content creators on here. But if you haven't, definitely check them out. Again, if you are a content creator, I'd tag you to create this video. I want to hear your guys' answers below. Also, if you're not a content creator and you want to just tell me your answers below to any of these questions in the comments, I'm all ears. I love hearing from you guys down below. You know I am nosy. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. You're awesome and I love you. Please subscribe if you have not yet, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye, guys.